Jesus Christ, eternal and not bound by time. Skeptics and non-believers often question the divinity of Jesus Christ, asking whether he is truly eternal and unbound by time. The Bible provides irrefutable evidence that Jesus Christ is eternal, not limited by time, and is God himself. This script will explore key scriptures to prove that Jesus Christ is not constrained by the temporal bounds of humanity. 1. Jesus Christ, the Eternal One. The Bible declares in Hebrews 13:8, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. This verse alone dismantles the argument that Jesus was merely a created being. It declares his unchanging nature. He is eternal, existing outside the confines of past, present, and future. Skeptics, if Jesus is the same yesterday, how could he not have existed before creation? If he is the same forever, how could he cease to exist? This attribute is exclusively divine. 2. Jesus declares his eternal nature. In Revelation chapter 1:8, Jesus says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. This declaration is unmistakable. Jesus identifies himself as eternal and almighty. He is the Alpha, the first, and the Omega, the last, existing before time began and continuing beyond its end. Skeptics, if Jesus claims to be the beginning, how could he be created? Who but God can exist from everlasting to everlasting? 3. Jesus and the I Am of the Old Testament. In John chapter 8:58, Jesus told the Pharisees, Before Abraham was, I am. This statement caused outrage among his listeners because they understood what he meant. Jesus identified himself as the I Am of Exodus 3:14, where God told Moses, I am that I am. This name signifies self-existence and timelessness. Skeptics, if Jesus were not claiming divinity, why would this statement lead to an attempt to stone him for blasphemy? Could any created being claim to exist before Abraham? 4. Jesus as the Creator. Colossians 1:16-17 provides irrefutable evidence of Jesus' role in creation. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth. He is before all things, and by him all things consist. Only someone unbound by time could create everything that exists. Skeptics, if Jesus created all things, how could he be a part of creation? If he holds all things together, who holds him together? The answer is simple. He is God. 5. Jesus shares God's eternal glory. In John 17:5, Jesus prayed, And now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. Here Jesus speaks of sharing the Father's glory before time began. Skeptics, if Jesus were not God, how could he share the same eternal glory as the Father? Would God share his glory with a created being? Isaiah 42:8 states, I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another. This proves Jesus must be God. 6. Jesus is Lord over time. In Revelation 22:13, Jesus reiterates, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. These titles assert his authority over all time. Skeptics, if Jesus has no beginning and no end, how can he be a finite being? If he is the first and the last, how could anyone exist before or after him? Only God is eternal. 7. Jesus in prophecy, the everlasting one. The prophet Micah foretold Jesus' eternal nature in Micah 5:2. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. This prophecy, written centuries before Jesus' birth, declares that he has existed eternally. Skeptics, how could a created being fulfill this prophecy of eternal origins? 8. Jesus and time in creation. In John chapter 1, 1-3, we read, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him." Here, the Word, Jesus, is explicitly said to exist in the beginning and is identified as God. Skeptics, if Jesus existed in the beginning, how could he be created within time? He is clearly outside time, as the creator of time itself. 9. Jesus' timeless existence in Psalms. The psalmist speaks of God's eternal nature in Psalm 92. "Before the mountains were brought forth, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God." This verse aligns perfectly with Jesus' claim to be eternal. Skeptics, if Jesus shares these attributes, how can he not be God? 10. Jesus is worshipped as God. In Hebrews 1:6, God commands, "Let all the angels of God worship him." Worship is reserved for God alone. Skeptics, if Jesus is not God, why would Almighty God command angels to worship him? Would God contradict his own law in Exodus 23, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me"? Conclusion. The evidence is overwhelming. Jesus Christ is eternal, unbound by time, and is God himself.